everybody. Welcome to this week's or month or whatever episode of the Good for Business podcast. Today I have farmer extraordinaire, my new best friend Stafford Shurden. We just got back from United Deli eating with Mr. John. And in case you don't know Stafford, I won't say gas station reviews. You do gas station food praises, and you
That's
leave
fair.
out the bad stuff. You're a big farming advocate, it's fair to say. He owns a farm, and Shurden's, we got a restaurant in Drew, Mississippi.
Yep.
Population?
1,700.
1,700.
Yeah.
We're trying to get a few more people over there. Welcome to the show. How's your visit been in Columbus so far?
I am fat and happy right now. I'm full from Mr. John's.
Yeah, it's supposed
and only
to be,
ate half of it.
We need to open up in big cities. They have these little nap pod places that you can rent, like, and take a nap in the afternoon. And we could put one of those right next to United Deli and make some money.
I think that would probably do okay.
So.
That might be a good second line of income for John. He might have to think about that.
Well, give everybody your elevator pitch. What do you do? You were a justice court judge, apparently at the age of 11. But tell us your life story real quick.
Yeah, I was early 30s when I became justice court judge. I grew up on a farm in Drew, Mississippi. Cotton was king back in those days, and still farming. No more cotton. The cotton kind of gone, and started getting involved in local politics and local retail business. I opened a restaurant in 2005. Been there 21 years. I tend to pick things up, but I don't tend to let them go too often. And, I did let go of the judge's job. In 2019, I decided not to run for re-election. So starting in 2020, started doing this crazy thing where I went around and reviewed gas station food and then decided to write a book. And just that thing just kept growing. What started to be marketing for my restaurant became something bigger,
There you go.
And that's how you and I met.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think we met the first time maybe was when you did Mr. United Deli here in Columbus.
2020.
Yeah, I made some sort of comment on there, and then right before you came back, we talked about John had this little incident with the police and a fundraiser and great things for the community, which everybody here knows about. And then you came back. So your second stop tour, tell people about that.
Yeah, so that was really just me finding a way to be able to go back to some of these places, because what I did was reviewed most everything within a 2-hour, 3-hour radius of home. And so I found myself driving, instead of 100 miles, 1,100 miles. Went to Key West one time, went to the Outer Banks of North Carolina one time. That's a long way from Drew, Mississippi. Let me just tell you, I didn't know how far that was, but it was a long way. And I'm like, man, I need content. Because once you start getting in this content game, it's like you always need new content, fresh stuff. And it seemed easy enough to me to let me go back to some of my favorites, and we'll just call it the second stop tour. And people would say, hey, you didn't try such and such. You got the burger, you should have gotten the French dip or whatever. So I could go back and try some of those things that were in the comments.
What was the first one that was your kind of breakout there? Because you had a few years before you got to United Deli, right?
No, United Deli was the first year.
Okay.
So I started in 2020 in end of January. And really, we had done a lot of different stuff with social media when I was judge, running for judge. And then I used it for the restaurant some. And I'd kind of done some things that were maybe pushing the edge a little bit. We did this little thing called the weekly staff, which my name being Stafford, It was kind of, which I stole from Gary Vee. He had the weekly V at the time, remember? So, we're talking about Gary Vee. So I stole it, and I was like the weekly staff, and we went around like Dockery Plantation and stuff. And so I played with a lot of different stuff, and it kind of right out of the gate, the gas station review hit a vibe with people. Now, it wasn't getting huge views, but it was like right out of the gate, 5,000 or 10,000 views on every video, like every one.
Yeah.
And the whole putting it on the tailgate of the truck thing, actually, Anna Walton, who's over here, was with me. And we were driving to Indianola, Mississippi, which is the county seat, to buy a license plate. And we've been talking about doing this. And somehow we got on the discussion of Anna Walton had never had chicken livers. And I'm like, what kind of Mississippi father am I if my daughter has not ever eaten a fried chicken liver?
I'm judging you already.
Right? So we go to Double Quick number 1, which is first Double Quick in Indianola. And I said, well, let's just film it. And she holds the phone, and I walk out, and I'm looking for a place to put it. So I just dropped the tailgate just in hubris, I guess. and the tailgate review was born right there. And right out of the gate is 5,000 or 10,000 views on the very first one.
I think it's better than I call it screaming at your sun visor, which we have. And what's his name? Y'all one of the production crew may have to scream. There's a very big MAGA dude up from who lived in Caledonia, then Carolina, who's one of the pioneers of sitting in his car and being angry about stuff. I don't remember his name. We'll edit it in here later. He's otherwise famously known as. Say we can do that in post-production and put that in. But like he's real big. One of those guys sits in his car, and then of course the Tay Eats guys. Who's big North Mississippi guy. But same thing. He's real loud and in his car. I don't like eating in my car. I was a little worried about you today. I did see you eating at a table.
Well, the whole thing about the car is it's just a great sound booth, and mics typically suck. So can I say suck on your podcast?
You can say anything.
What kind of trash podcast you got going on here, Colin?
It's nasty.
But yeah, so typically mics are not that great. So I get the being in the vehicle, and I do record some stuff in the vehicle rather. But I guess watching Dave Portnoy do the Barstool thing, he always stands on the street. In my mind, that's the way it was going to be, more like that, like a man on the street kind of an interview, rather than a regular review in the car. And then I was just like, well, where am I going to put all this food? And then drop the tailgate. And I was like, that's kind of cool. We'll just leave it there. And sometimes the audio struggles and suffers because of it. And I've tried a lot of different ways. I tried different mics. I tried ways to cancel. And you can there's some gain function, but still, it sounds like you're outside. And in the end, it's more real, I think.
Well, right before we came on the air, I talked about Josh at Catfish Alley Studios about the first time I went in there that I saw the setup. Yeah, there you go. There's the plug. Yeah. It's a Dorothea Brand quote. Dorothea Brand was the second highest-selling author of the 20th century. Only problem she had was she was a woman. So in personal growth, she sold 50 million books.
Wow.
And so she's kind of buried in history, but she's got a lot of great quotes. But my favorite is, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. I know so many realtors and other professionals that just have a couple microphones and a ring light in the corner of their office or something, and that was the excuse. Gary Vee talks about it too. Why it wasn't quite right, It wasn't quite perfect, and you often see like the best people that come out of social media are the ones who are just literally saying what's on their mind. Some of my most popular stuff just locally has been
turn the mic on and go.
Goofy stepping all over my language. We've brag at Catfish Alley Studios that the best promo we ever had was from my brother, where I'm like, please, Eric, please go to the Vietnamese donut store in West Point. And you met my brother, and he's like, oh, if I have to. But it was the most sincere family.
If I have to, yeah.
And we had, God dang, we had nationally known mobster on the podcast, like crickets. We're going to have you. You'll be pretty popular. I think you may approach Mr. John territory.
I don't know about that. He's pretty popular here in Columbus. And that was one of the first really big videos was his, and it was kind of a weird time. We talked about this earlier, where you had pre-COVID and post-COVID, and nothing's ever the same after post-COVID. This was the middle of COVID, and I had quit filming, and I had really good momentum. I mean, I had people from ESPN going, hey, have you thought about doing a segment with us on the SEC? I mean, in the middle of COVID. And then I'm like, okay, number one, I don't want to I kind of feel like I got lightning in a bottle, right? So I don't want to stop. Gas stations are still open. Maybe I can get away with doing a few gas stations. And one of the first ones I came to during COVID was Mr. John's United Deli. And it was like 50,000 views overnight. But that's because the people of Columbus love John. It had nothing to do with me, I don't think. But now I got a lot of fans in Columbus because of that, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And talk about spreading your influence, because you can go, and I've done little things in beach towns about real estate offices or restaurants, and then I've had realtors there call me with a referral for something, because they're like, I am mystified that more people don't just go out and, I'm a cheerleader. I'm going, we met a couple people in town today, but I'm just taking pictures. I'm like, oh, they're awesome. And that's it. That's my whole spiel. It's like, oh, they're awesome. How many gas stations have you had to skip, or is there a percentage of
that I filmed and I didn't keep it? Very few. There's probably 10 or 12 maybe over a 6-year period. But I do a lot, and at this point, if I'm going to drive 2 or 3 hours to get there, I'm kind of going to know it's good before I go. I'm going to have a lot of comments in the positive neighborhood. I'm going to look at the Facebook page. If businesses are listening to this, If I go to your Facebook page and you hadn't posted in 3 months, I'm not coming because I can't verify. You may be good, you may be open. I can't even verify you're open at this point, much less verify what the quality of what you're doing is. But, you know, these guys that are posting at least weekly, you know what I mean? It's better if you post daily, but at least weekly. And there's great pictures and there's comments under the pictures. Oh, I came in today and that was so good. That matters a lot to somebody that's coming from out of town.
Well, you don't have to have magical stuff. So you met Doug Pelham at Zachary's earlier. So Zachary's 10, 12 years ago was doing pretty good, but really until he started doing the community fundraising stuff, he was doing well, but not exceptional. And they have 5-minute lunch deals. They're fast. But what he started doing, and he's I think he's 58 or 59 now. What Doug started doing was just a simple picture on Instagram of the lunch special or just a burger. And when I say every day at 10:30, girls in my office would be like, ooh. And I'm like, what the heck is it? Like, I started going there because other women in my office were going, ooh, what's that? I'm like, what are y'all oohing? I'm like, well, there's this burger at Zachary's. And that's all he was doing. There was no description. There was nothing. It was like, there's a burger. Here's today's special. Didn't even say what the special was sometimes. He did that post, I think, for until COVID. He did something like 6 years in a row at 10:29 a.m. every morning. Nothing magical to it, but just overnight success. You know, just constant. And people eventually are like, oh, my God, I guess I'll show up there, you know?
Yeah, so when I took marketing at Mississippi State University, and the common theme was top of mind awareness and just letting them know you're alive, dude. Like, there's so many businesses, you ain't heard anything from them in forever. And so that, I mean, it works. We even, when we were running out of content, we would write on a guest check, like handwritten guest check, what the special was that day. Take a picture of that because you can't do just words on Instagram. So we would take a picture of that and cross-post it just to have something up. Well, but pictures are great, and that worked really well. But I taught one of the girls that worked for me how to use ChatGPT, and I created a monster. And so she's posting these ChatGPT menus every day. And I'm like, it was really cool 6 months ago. But now everybody's using that same feature on ChatGPT. I'm like, we got to teach you how to tweak it a little bit to where we have our own personality. And then I trained another girl that works for me. She's doing skits every day.
I see her cleaning up the yard.
Oh, she's hilarious.
And so, like, some people can't come up with that. And we're going to, since Josh is in the foreground here, we're going to talk about Gary Vee a lot. But, like, document, don't create. So I had 4 years, like 4 years, 6 weeks, and 2 days. But it was 1,300 days in a row that my Instagram and Facebook post for Colin Krieger Realtor, which I don't want anybody to go to. We just have to have that page to be able to advertise in Mississippi for real estate. Colin Krieger's all you need to go to. But on that page, it was just, hey, campers, I'm at work. This is what I'm doing today. Like 30 seconds, not interesting. The first day I missed it, I had like 20 people call my wife, call my family.
Are you okay?
Like, and I was like, well, I'm getting 1 or 2 likes a day. And I was like, nobody cares. They're like, dude, you're a hard working. Like every day at 5:30, I'm like, hey, I'm at work. That was it. That's all it took to really, it was such a big part of the brand building that you don't realize, where it's not, you don't necessarily have to be that entertaining. And it goes back to my theory that people will watch anything. If they know them or they're local, they'll cheer for them.
Everything's content, number one. And I guess number two is consistency is such a big piece of what you're doing with content creation, I think. Just like you said, getting up every day and just plugging in. And I'm guilty of not doing that, right? But now I got somebody working for me doing it. I'm like, you got to post every day. She's like, you're not. I'm like, well, but it is true. You can't, you know, and people they'll watch anything that's local. Mississippi's 3 million people, and we all cheer for each other, I think.
Yeah, you said that earlier. And that's an important thing to note is that people, when I was at the newspaper, and I make this argument with the Commercial Dispatch all the time, like the more pictures we put of kids playing baseballs and people winning awards, the more papers we sold. And Facebook, I think, very few people other than me are taking a picture of somebody else doing good. It'll be their kid. Yeah. But when I'm like, your kid's awesome, I'm not doing it like I'm really like, oh, this kid's going to smile if I take their picture. And now you get to the point where people want to take pictures with you or of you or that sort of thing. Is kind of neat.
So there's a secret that I've understood a while about the gas station tailgate review that I have not talked about a lot. And that is, I've learned that if I go to Chicago or Atlanta or Nashville and do a review, it's just like drinking water from a fire hose. But if I go to Bay Springs, Mississippi, population, 3,000 in Bay Springs, and everybody that lives there loves that town, and I do a review, everybody in that town shares that review.
Because they're proud of their friend.
Because they're proud of their town. You know who else shares it? All the people that grew up there and have left and come back, they're all sharing that review. So my most watched videos are not from big cities. It's some exceptions to that. Keys Fuel Mart. Are you familiar with them?
The Keys on the Gulf Coast?
Keys in New Orleans.
No, I saw a review on it. Yeah, I know.
How do you say Rampart Street?
That's right, Rampart.
Rampart.
Street.
I got made fun of for saying it like that.
That's correct.
That's the other thing.
I grew up on North Rampart.
Well,
you
Keys Fuel Mart, some of the best fried chicken you're ever going to eat is at that place, and they fry it 24 hours a day.
That's what I was wondering, is how many places do you have to kind of back off when you go to New Orleans, because like there's so many places there. I know you've been there a couple times, but
I did. I've done several in New Orleans. It's Brothers.
Yeah,
is good. It's just good. Everybody's like, if you think that's good, go to Brothers. It's good. It's not that
everyone
good.
who has accosted or attacked you today, I'm talking to you, Joey Cook, mentions restaurants, and you kind of want to be like, I'm not the restaurant guy.
I'm not the restaurant guy.
I have, my friend's got a challenge with that in New Orleans. He's a red bean and rice guy, and so he did 300 and something red bean and rice every Monday. And he's been everywhere in New Orleans. He's mainly on Twitter. It was huge, but he's big everywhere. And so it's called Hold the Mayo. It's his name on Twitter and everywhere. And he did great. He got endorsement deals with Abita, and like eventually he's like, I got to do something else. And instead of trying to do red beans and rice and this, he stopped doing red beans and rice. Like Barstool was kind of courting him to do Barstool, but he's like, I'm just going to do my own. He does a post-Saints game show. It's the best thing in history. People come calling him drunk and stuff like that. And so anyway, Hold the Mayo on Twitter and everywhere else you'll find him. But he's he did red beans and rice reviews for 6 years.
I think I have seen that guy.
Yeah, he's great. I mean,
because he came all into Mississippi doing red beans and rice, I think.
Yeah, he kind of got frustrated.
He got into Nashville. I mean, Natchez and some other places.
He got a little far away, and that's what he said. It was like and he'd go, and he was pretty honest. He'd be kind of like the way I would be, which is like, good for them for trying. You know, he wouldn't be mean. There were some places, if they were rude to him, he's mean. But, like, he made some places just going. And then he just kind of got frustrated that at some point he's like, this is all I can do. Now, gas stations, how far north of the Manson-Nixon line have you gone?
I have not. So there's some interesting statistics about that. It's way more gas stations in the Southeast than anywhere else in America. I don't know if we just do more driving. I don't know what the deal is. But it's not even close. You take that, the Texas and Louisiana into that Arkansas, which some people say is not part of the Southeast. But that Southeastern United States, way, way more. And I spoke at the National Association of Convenience Stores a couple of times, and every time they're like, when are you coming to California? And it's like, well, it's a little bit of a drive.
Well, also, when are y'all going to learn how to cook? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not.
So there's a couple. It is funny because it is good gas station food outside of the South.
Oh yeah.
There's some great. There's a place up in New Jersey that's a chain, and they do all their pizzas in brick ovens in the gas station. But it's hard. I mean, I can fly up there, but how to get the tailgate there?
Well,
right?
the other part is, I mean, I guess you could like find gas stations you've already been to and make a map and trail them. I know I'm sure there's apps for all that sort of stuff. We're like, can I drive 4 hours and what's the next best gas station? Like, I know where the best bathrooms are between here and New Orleans. I know where to stop. I know that the Courtyard Marriott in Meridian has free cookies from 11 to 2 every day. Just saying, if you need to stop and go to the restroom, stop by the Courtyard Marriott in Meridian, Mississippi. But so there's places like that you know on your thing, but I don't know how far you venture out. And do you just do one, or do you try to catch 5? Like if
I'm leaving town, I'm going to try to do. I'm going to at least film 3 times in a day. I would like to film 4, and it's really hard.
Can you fit it in your tummy is the question.
That's the problem. So it's like, if it's really, really good, I can't fit it all because I overeat then, But if you'll notice on a lot of the reviews, I take 2 or 3 bites. That's it. And sometimes that's because that's my 4th review of the day. I've even changed shirts just to throw people off. And then I went, you know what? I'm just going to wear the Archie of Drew. That's why I wear the Archie of Drew shirt so much.
It's your brand. Yeah.
So it doesn't look like I'm doing all this on one day. But yeah, so I'll try to film. Actually, you were talking about doing shows. I talked to Andrew Zimmerman's production company. And they asked me, they said, how many can you do? And I said, man, I got to film 3, but I try to film 4 or 5 if I can. And they're like, oh, yeah, Andrew's the same way. And, of course, that fell through, too. But, yeah.
I've been known, Josh, the same way. We try to record 4 podcasts a day sometimes. And
that's tough.
I'll put some sport some sport coats on. Yeah, by the last one, I usually feel the best, but my voice is giving out. But I change shirts or put on a different jacket, not thinking that the podcasts are coming out a week. Nobody's paying that close attention.
Nah.
Your stuff, they might, like if you put out 3 in 1 week and you're wearing the same shirt.
You know, this is completely off subject, but not, do you know the guys that do Hometown down in Laurel?
No, but I'm aware of what
Ben and Aaron Napier. So he gets the same haircut every Tuesday because he has to look, they might film something that they're saying is the same day, but it might be a month apart.
Yeah.
And his hair can't be different. So he just gets the same haircut every Tuesday. He has a standing appointment, and he just walks in, and they're ready for him.
That's fancy.
And I was like, I never thought of that. And then, what's the guy from Waco, Texas? Him and his wife do it. Well, he let his hair grow out one year, and they filmed and he had a little scruffy beard, and they filmed the first day, and they're like, after they filmed that day, they're like, you have to keep that for the year. And he was like, I had no idea.
Oh, you signed up for it.
Yeah. So now we've already filmed the first day. You got to keep that scruffy beard, the perfect scruffiness and the long hair, which he was growing for like locks of love or something. So by the time the year was over,
the poor kids or some kid waiting for hair and can't give it to him.
Yeah.
Tough. It's showbiz.
So I don't have that part. I'm just like, I do whatever I want. That is a benefit to you and I doing content on our own and your friend do it, not going with somebody else. I don't really have a boss. If I don't want to do it, I don't do it.
Yeah, I don't have. If I'm late to somewhere, people get really nervous. Like if I'm supposed to be somewhere, and which is a good trait because realtors are notoriously late. But I have that. Like I take 3 days off of Facebook, and people think something. I mean, they're calling something's wrong, and I usually do post a bunch of mundane stuff. Like it's just I'm here. I didn't realize until earlier this year how many people thought I was too busy to bother, which is dangerous when you're in a business of real estate.
Yeah.
And I started going around asking people, like, can I get some business? They're like, I don't want to bother you with all you have going on. And I'm like,
that's the whole point of doing this, man.
Like, I got kids I got to feed,
Need a new pair of shoes, dude.
So talk about the Success Supper Club that you've been doing.
Yeah. So I guess in my book, I get a little bit into some business advice, and I'm more business person than food review guy. And
first of all, you've done farming,
the
restaurant business, and social media in your midlife. Those aren't 3 things that are like everybody should take a run at or take a shot at.
They're hard things. Yeah. They are hard things. And we had a gift shop back in the day, and I was a duck hunting guide, and I've done a lot of stuff, but it's always been business for myself. I've always, done things for myself.
I like to say I've never had a grown-up job is what I like to say.
That's exactly what I say. I've never had a real job. That's what I tell everybody. I've never had a paycheck except when I was elected official. And that was the kind of only paycheck, but I was still the boss of that. Like, I didn't have anybody over me that could tell me what to do, which it's good and bad. But what was the question? The Success Supper Club.
Yes.
So after my dad passed away in 2006, it really was tough on me because he was a very, very good business person, and he was great at what I'm not great at. He was very process oriented, had his accounting together and all of that. And so I would lean on him a lot, even though he wasn't in business anymore. And I just found a real vacuum of mentorship where I lived after he was gone. I had it. What I didn't realize was most people did not have that available to them. And so I started getting I did Tony Robbins' thing for a while. I read all the Zig Ziglar stuff, but I found out being in in-person events was the best thing. And I kept on searching it out. And I was leaving Nashville one day, this thing called Whiskey and Wisdom. And I was like, that was a really good event, and I could pull something like that off. All they did was, it was basically like a live podcast, just like you and I sitting down. They just sat in front of 100 people and talked about business, and they did it with a happy hour in the beginning and then a happy hour after.
Well, that way you come back because you're going to forget half the stuff you just learned.
Well, not too happy. You know what I mean?
Not whiskey, idea.
But not too much. It's called Whiskey and Wisdom, and I'm like, that's the greatest name for an event. And I'm driving back down 40, and I'm like, if it is to be, it's up to me. And there's no reason why we can't have this in the Delta. I have a space that's not open at night. We can hold 50, 60 people in there pretty simply. And still have an area to do the happy hour. So we started doing it. Heath Riles was my first guest, and we had 90 people show up for the first one. And we've done them every month since last August, and we've had some cool guests and learned a lot of cool stuff and made a lot of friends out of that. And it's been a lot of fun.
Well, just having good people in the room. I told you earlier that I'm a huge fan of your average incomes, your 5 best friends, and you're like, I'm always struggling to find people locally or striving to find them that are trying to get better. Especially the older you get, a lot of people get set in their ways, or they have grown-up jobs, like they're just set at the 9 to 5 thing. And I got real involved in personal growth at first, like 1-minute manager stuff in the late 2000s. Kind of took a break when I was at the paper. When I got into real estate, it was Gary Vee, and actually Tony Robbins and like 3 or 4 other people. Brian Buffini's a real estate trainer. He does some other personal growth stuff. They all flipped on a dime around 13 or 14 or 15. I actually heard Tony Robbins credit Gary Vaynerchuk once, where he went from 90% paid content, 10% free, to 90% free, 10% paid. And what he was doing was, like, you get people in. Like, if that stuff hadn't been free when I started, I wouldn't have become a better person or learned all this stuff, because it used to be so tough. If you wanted Tony Robbins, you had to listen to the tape and put the tape in your car and that kind of stuff.
I remember that.
And I had like Tom Hopkins sales training stuff and all the Zig Ziglar stuff. And now even Ziglar Inc., like 90% of the stuff is free, but the 10%, it's pretty pricey. And I can say for a fact, from corporate marketing at Papa John's to even newspaper stuff, but the training and personal growth stuff conferences I go to, there is always at least one thing from a speaker or one person in the crowd that I meet that's worth the whole 1, 2, or 3 day conference.
Well, what I learned going to those things was, what are you trying to get out? If you go in with an idea of what you're trying to get out of it, that helps. What are you trying to change in your business? What are you trying to change in your personal life or whatever? And then at least having just one action step. This is something I learned. When I get back, I'm taking this action. And we were talking about this earlier. You can do push-ups. You can do push-ups, or you can talk about doing push-ups. You can read about doing push-ups. But till you do the push-ups, it doesn't matter. So I did learn it's all about the action. And so I always try to go into those things with the idea that I'm trying to get one nugget, just like you said, one nugget, but one nugget that I'm willing to take action on tomorrow. Well, not, I'm going to do this in 6 months, because the way you kind of get high on your own supply while you're in the moment, and then tomorrow you're not anymore. But, Zig Ziglar said, you're talking about him, you don't have to be great to get started, but you got to get started to be great.
Yeah. Well,
so just take that first step.
Well, if somebody asks the key to my success in real estate, it's not procrastinating. Like, I think all stress comes from procrastination or expectation on one side or the other. Somebody else is waiting to give me bad news, waiting to give me good news, and they might take too long. And I see it all the time in real estate, but I also see it when people are doing a personal growth stuff. And I've been to conferences where, like, they're asking something, or here's a good example. I have clients, and I've done it myself, where, like, I can't get a plumber to my house. And I'm like, well, Google plumbers in Columbus, Mississippi, and there's 132 of them. Have you gotten past 3? Like, are you really trying? And sometimes the most haunting thing I ever heard in personal growth, and I don't know who said it, but it was like, imagine there's a camera watching you in your office and your kids are watching it. Because none of us are working probably 70% of the time as hard as we did when we were 19 working in a kitchen somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, we're working hard, but it's a different thing. And so imagine if your kids are watching you all day. And I have that reminder that comes up on my phone a few times a day, and that usually gets me out of any woe is me scenario, or I'm having a bad day. I'm like, well, if my kids are watching this, like, heck, and one day they may be with all the cameras everywhere and everything else. But that's a heck of a motivator to see, like, are my kids watching this example, or are they? Yeah. And am I living in the correct way? And not giving excuses. I do it too. Like, I have a plumbing thing at my house that needs fixing. Freaking Andrew Benton's one of my best friends, and he runs a huge plumbing company. And I'm like, I just got to call him and do it.
Yeah, that's Jimmy Evans is a pastor. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he gave a great sermon called Attitude Before Skill, and how much more important attitude is than skill. Because if you can have the best skill in the world, but if nobody wants to deal with you, or you got a bad attitude, or you're lazy, it really doesn't matter. And I am not very skilled, Colin. I just try to go through life with a really good attitude. And I don't always. Like, and you can ask my wife, she'll tell you, he don't always have the best attitude. But when at the end of the day, I really try to just suck it up, what did the Navy SEAL say? Embrace the suck.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you just got to embrace the suck and be like, you know what? That's why I always say, live life with passion at the end of all my videos. It does not mean go out and find your passion. It means no matter what the circumstances that God has put you in today, you just find a way to be passionate about where you are right now, even if it's painful. In fact, there's nothing non-painful about passion. You know, we think about the passion of the Christ. That was not a non-painful event. You know, so if you're really trying to be passionate, yes, that means like the football player playing through the pain, you know.
Well, and passion isn't always recognized or rewarded too. Like I'm sure you've had days, and I know he's from not quite your neck of the woods, and he's known as a sinner now. But Brett Favre talked about his book, winning the Super Bowl, winning the MVP trophy, goes through the whole thing, and he gets home and he forgot to take out the trash. Yeah. And he had to wake up and take his kid. He's like, I wasn't off the field before I was like, the credits aren't rolling. Like he's walking off the field, the trophy, and he's like, this is it. And I've had days where the most passionate, wonderful things in my life happen. I get home and I'm like, the wife's at soccer with the kids, and I'm like, you want to celebrate. And the same thing I tell my kids about the bad side of it. Nobody's staying awake at night worrying about saving you.
Yeah.
Maybe your mom or dad every once in a while. And nobody's staying awake at night hating you.
No.
People who make the bad comments jump off right away. They're not like, no, well, maybe every once in a while with a voodoo doll or something.
If they do, I feel real sorry for them. If they're still thinking about Colin and Stafford tomorrow, like what a sad life. Yeah, man, I think about that all the time. It's like you're the main actor in your own movie. So are they. They got their own movie. You're not that important a character, really.
Yeah.
It's just like what we were talking about the hometown. It's like, you know, I figured out to make the hometown the main character, not me. It's about that gas station and where I am. I'm in, you know, Columbus at John's Deli, and the video, even though John was not in the video was not about me. It was about John and his family, right?
Well, that's what I think about in Drewville is the concept you're talking about where y'all are. Like, you literally could have a film crew just film and pick 6 people in a town, and it would be just like every other. I remember, I guess the first one everybody thinks about is the Paris Hilton show back in the early 2000s.
I think about Duck Dynasty, dude.
Oh,
when I saw that, I was like, oh, I could be famous.
Yeah.
I know those guys. They live next door. You know? Yeah. They don't, but I mean, we know those same people.
Yeah, and I think people would watch it, especially now that so much is segmented. My kids were asking, was Michael Jackson really that big? And I said, yes, but there were only 3 television stations and 5 radio stations. Like, yeah, he was probably that big and important, but look what happened. Even though he was alive, the world evolved and he became less big and less big and less big, even though there was a spectacle, because there were 6 billion other options. You know what I mean? And not all of them were tangible and you could see them in person and stuff, but there's a whole bunch more options now for stuff. And I think because of that, you echoed my sentiment, which is it's good to be an established television station or established person now before the fake stuff starts, because people are gravitating away from newspapers suck to like, well, this is the only one of these things I can trust.
Right.
Because
especially local. I think local papers and local podcasts like this, local people are going to be more interested in that because they know what they're getting. I mean, it's kind of like this. If you go in I don't want to say this and sound bad, but if you go in a Chinese grocery store, I was listening to a woman on a podcast the other day. She's from China. She said, I don't buy food from China in a Chinese grocery store. I buy Chinese food that's made here because you don't know what's in it. And that's kind of the thing with content. We don't know what's in it anymore, dude. It's like, did they make that on Canva? Did they make that with AI? Or is that completely AI? There's nothing on the whole videos.
I'm actually getting frustrated now, and I don't digest as much social media as people would think. I almost post as much as I digest.
Same.
But like my Facebook Reels, when I go to watch, it's always in Sunny clips or whatever. My clips, the clips are getting edited short, so they don't get to the punchline or whatever. And I started realizing what it was is that as AI is clipping things and doesn't know. It may know when the scene ends, but it doesn't know what the punchline was. So it's cutting off these clips not to go to commercial. It's gone. And I'm like, and I didn't realize when I clicked, I did 5 in a row, and they were all said it's created with AI. There's no real person. And I'm like,
I do my podcast. I clip with Opus Clip, but then I go back and rewatch the clip and edit it further. But it's like my podcast is usually an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah,
and I do very, very little editing on them. It's like cut the end, cut the beginning. throw a little music in, a little bumper music on each end. I'm done. That's the podcast.
I mean, all my click-throughs on the podcast are either 6 or 7 minutes or they're the whole show. Like they're either people are just checking it out because it's their friend on there, or they're listening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had one time where I sent out we did the clips, but our main 2 podcast links were bad. Like we did something wrong, hit a wrong button, and the next day I had like 4 people like, that was an awesome interview. I'm like, I know you didn't. Like I didn't call them out, but I'm like, there was no way you actually listened to that podcast.
We have started a new podcast with one of the ladies that works for me. She's 30. She's been there since she was 17, and she's the one that does all the little videos, and we call it Waitress Confessions.
Yes.
So all she does is interview waitresses. You know, it's going to be, the more she does it, the better she's going to get. It's going to be pretty funny. But I clipped it out, and people were like, it wouldn't let me watch the whole podcast. I'm like, what do you mean? Is my link broken? Well, they're just watching the clip, not realizing it's just the clip, and at the end of it, and we're like, well, what happened at the end? And it said I had to go to YouTube to watch it. I'm like, oh, you watched the clip on Facebook, and at the end of it, I did a thumbnail that says, hey, go to
yeah, that's
YouTube.
one when if she can get. I shared it here, and like one of the girls like, where are they? I'm like, I don't know if you have to go there, but as a former waiter and worked in restaurants, like I have to be reminded of the stories because I have been out of the game so long, you know. But I was like, y'all should just keep, like, restaurants should keep a list on the walls. We have this every year in
It's
real
so
estate.
funny.
We have horror stories at, like, our annual real estate awards, and you're supposed to call the Nutcracker. You're supposed to talk about your most difficult transaction. Well, you forget about them because the next one's even crazier than the last one. So,
it's just like the judge stories. I mean, I had so many good ones that I probably should have written down. I had a guy come in one time with a shirt that said "not guilty" on it, and listened to the whole case, ruled on the case. When he walks out, Miss Helen, that's the clerk, the court clerk, leans over and she says, "Did you read his T-shirt?" And I'm like, "Nope." "What did it say?" And she said, "It said not guilty." I went, "Well, that didn't work out for him, did it?" But never even noticed the shirt because I was focused on what he was talking about, which is what I should have been focused on, by the way. But he did had a T-shirt on that said not guilty.
you missed your chance. You could
He was-
give him a free ride.
He didn't. He was found guilty.
What came first, the judgeship or the restaurant? And what made you have the bright idea to get in the restaurant business?
So the farming was first. Been farming. Grew up on the farm. Was around it. Learned to drive on the farm. Learned to do everything on the farm. And then in 2000, I got real involved. After my dad retired, I started farming for myself in 2000, and actually figured out I had more time, not less. I thought I'd have less time, and I didn't realize they worked me pretty hard. So I actually had more spare time. I got involved with the Chamber of Commerce and then Main Street. We talked about the Main Street organization earlier, and they were all about revitalizing downtown. I got really involved in it, and I was like, somebody needs to start buying some of these. They can't all be fixed up by the Chamber of Commerce, right?
Yeah.
And our Chamber of Commerce was a 501c3. We raised money. We did a lot of stuff. Curb extensions. We actually paid for paving Main Street. Our 501c3 did. But I was like, at some point, if people don't do individual investments, it's just not going to work. You can't do this all through a 50. It can't all be fundraised. And I'm going to be an example and buy something. So I made an offer on 2 buildings downtown Drew, and they said no. And about 6 months later, they flagged me down and said, "You still want that building?" I said, "If you take $8,000 for those 2 buildings, I still want the building." Bought it, renovated. That was in 2002, and it took about 3 years to renovate it. And I kind of had in the back of my mind it would be a restaurant, but we needed one. We didn't have a restaurant downtown, and ended up opening kind of just a sandwich shop initially.
So you started a restaurant because you were hungry.
I started a restaurant because I wanted a place that particularly farmers could sit down together at lunch and talk about whatever's going on. And I mean, we're still an ag community. Are now. Our biggest group of customers is ag. And we just didn't have that place where we could sit down together. And so, yeah, it's something about sitting down and breaking bread together that changes the conversation in a positive way.
Do breakfast places not do well in ag communities? I've always wondered that. Like breakfast places in New Orleans traditionally didn't do well. And part of the theory was half the city's in the service industry and they're up all night and don't want to wake up and eat breakfast.
I think that back in the day, my granddaddy's generation loved a breakfast place. They wanted to go to a breakfast place and eat. I was raised, my dad was like, We jump up, we put our clothes on, we go to work. We don't even eat breakfast. Or you stop at the gas station for a biscuit, right? And this is a Southern thing, a pack of nabs. People out of the South don't know what's a pack of nabs, but Nabisco. And that's the way we did breakfast growing up. But what I noticed being on the restaurant side of it now, everybody says they want a breakfast place where I live. And then when you open it up, they don't want to pay. Eggs are expensive. Bacon's expensive. They think breakfast should be $5.
It's $13.
Yeah, it's 13, and people don't want to. They go in, and I think they get sticker shock. I'm like, dude, go to Waffle House. It's $13 in Waffle House now to eat. It's just breakfast is not the cheap meal it used to be. Breakfast used to be cheap. I remember as a kid, there were places you go in there with $2 or $3 to eat breakfast.
Yeah.
Well, those are gone. Those are long gone. So everybody I know that's tried it, I have not tried it on the restaurant side, but everybody I know that's tried it was just really upset. People just didn't want to pay what it really cost to put that food on the plate.
Yeah.
But they didn't have a problem at lunch.
I'm shocked at the places I eat lunch when I say working class people, like people who I know are making $13 an hour, eating at a place that's going to cost them $20-something to eat. I'm
Yeah.
And I feel bad too. I went with my kids to a Mexican place, the whole family.
Even
on
Mexican
a Wednesday
food,
afternoon,
yeah.
it was like $80. I'm like, my God. And we're both getting to the age now where we remember where a 2-liter Coke was 99 cents, and I feel like the old man, but it has changed a lot.
The quarter
COVID.
drink machines were around forever. Where you could just go put and I mean, I was grown, and we had quarter drink machines in Drew.
Not anymore.
No. Yeah, you can barely buy them for $1 at like for just a canned drink. It costs $1 at Walmart.
The two biggest economic shocks I've had, and I do go to Kroger and get stuff or whatever, but like I went to Walmart and I hadn't been there in 2.5 years. I got away doing pretty good, right? We were having a Super Bowl party here at the clubhouse, and I needed a TV, and I called my wife. I'm like, there's a 55-inch TV here for $175. I'm like, is this a Super Bowl special? She's like, no, that's just what they cost now. I'm like, I have an $11 12-pack of cans of Coke in my cart. So I can either get 120 Cokes or a 55-inch TV? I was like, neither of them make sense to me. Like, it shouldn't cost that much for Coke. And why is the TV that much? And she's like, I don't know. Just get home.
I remember when those flat screens came out, and they were so expensive, and we were like, oh, we want a flat screen for the house so bad,
I had one break here, and I didn't even troubleshoot it after that. I'm like, let's go get another one.
They're disposable.
Yeah, I put one out. There's one outside that was outside at my house for like 4 years with a cover on it. It kept working, and then it died. I'm like,
I remember when TVs were so expensive that if one broke, you could put it on the porch and act like you were hiding it. Somebody would steal it in 2 or 3 days, and it was broken, And you're just like, maybe if we leave it on the porch. They were heavy. You remember the one your grandmama had that was like a piece of furniture? It was built into a wooden cabinet. And we put one on my uncle's porch. And sure enough, about 3 days later, he was moving out. And we just made out like we forgot it. 2 or 3 days later, that thing was gone. So somebody
punish them when they get home.
Oh, no telling what it took them to steal that thing,
So how did you end up being a judge?
My dad was, after he retired from farming, he got really, really bored. He was in his late 50s. And he decided to run for judge, and won. And about 6 months in, discovered he had colon cancer, and lived for 2 more years. And when he passed away, they appointed me to it, with the idea that I was not going to run for it.
This would have been in late
2006.
Okay.
So 06. And
by the way, in case anybody didn't know, my wife's had a fight with breast cancer. Colon cancer, prostate cancer, and breast cancer were a completely different animal at the turn of the century. I can't believe I'm saying that, than they are now.
And he was late to the game finding it, right? Like, this is a lesson for pre-screenings and stuff like that. Like, he probably could have been pre-screened at the right time and lived. You don't know that for sure, but it had gotten in it. It was in his liver when they found it. And he knew. He came and talked to me before he went, and he was like, I'm going to the doctor, and I'm kind of worried about it. And I kind of blew it off because he had a heart attack. He's like, nothing happened. I mean, he was fine. All this stuff he'd been through, and he was a lot bigger guy than me, and he was just kind of a man's man, military guy. And I was like, he'll breeze through this like he does everything else. And he came back, and he was like, they basically told me I got 2 years to live. And even then, I was like, there's no way. And he took all the chemo and lost. I mean, we watched that whole thing happen. And then they call me like, we bury him on it's a pretty crazy story. We have a bad storm on a Friday night that kills all of my crops. A hailstorm kills everything. My dad dies on Saturday night. We bury him on Tuesday. On Wednesday, the Board of Supervisors is like, we got to appoint somebody to this position, and we don't mean to rush you, but we got to do it on Monday. And so I'm like, well, let me at least sleep on it. Because it wasn't in my wheelhouse, nor was it on my mind. And I said, all right, I'll do it, but I don't want to run for it. I'll do it till November when they have special election. He said, cool, we're going to put that in the minutes that you said that. Because I told him, I said, I'm not even coming to the meeting. And after the meeting, Barry Bryant was the supervisor. He called me and he said, so we kind of talked about it. We think you'd be a pretty good judge. So we did not put that in the minutes that you weren't going to run. I think you need to consider it. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing it. And about 3 weeks in, I love a learning curve, I guess. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. And then I ran for it 4 times.
Did you have any legal training whatsoever?
Not before they appointed me, but so Mississippi has the Mississippi Judicial College that you have to go to. And now, this was not the case in 2006, but now you actually have to take an exam. The exam's pretty simple from what I can tell. I never had to take it, but they showed us what was on it. I mean, I'd been judged at that point maybe 4 or 5 years, and it looked pretty simple to me, but it's a pretty narrow scope that justice court deals with. And the first thing I learned was, if I don't know, I don't have to make a decision right there. So I just went, all right, first of all, I'm going to research. I'm looking at what's on the docket today. I know there's DUIs on the docket. I need to kind of have that law in my head. But if I don't know, I can just say, you know what, I'm going to take it under advisement, and I can go research it. And it goes back to when somebody gives you an opportunity, you go for it, and you figure it out.
Yeah.
You build a parachute on the way down.
That's
right?
Fail forward.
Yeah, fail forward, exactly. And it was, a lot of it really is common sense. And if you don't know the answer's there. Nobody's hiding the answer from you. And you're not forced into making a decision that you're going to be ashamed of later down the road. You can always, like I said, we call it taking it under advisement.
Yeah.
What that really means is, I don't know.
I need to use that when people ask me hard questions.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know the answer to that. And I would tell them sometimes, I'll be like, look, I don't know. And the other thing that I learned was you had a prosecuting attorney in criminal court. And civil court, oftentimes you had no attorney on either side. But the worst thing you could have was an attorney on one side and not on the other. Because when you had 2 attorneys, they're going to each argue their best position in the law. So they're going to probably be pretty good arguments. So I probably had a better handle on what the law said after those 2 attorneys got through than I did going in. And if you didn't need that, you wouldn't do that in any court. The judge would just come in and say, tell me the facts, let me rule. So no judge knows all of this stuff. Yeah. You know, they're all hopefully studious and judicious, right? And they're learning, but they're listening. They're listening to what these and like I said, I liked having 2 lawyers in there because I got to hear the other side of the argument a little clearer.
Yeah. Switching subjects. How many kids do you have?
2 girls. One sitting right over there.
Yeah.
That's Anna Walton. That's my youngest daughter. She's 19. She's my artist. I think both of them are artists, really. And then Mary Stafford is 26, and she's an architect in Fairhope, Alabama.
Ooh, that's a good place to be an architect. It's a grown-up job, too.
It is a grown-up job, and she started out in Charleston, South Carolina, which she can pick a good town.
Yeah, Fairhope is the Charleston of the South. So.
It is, and
by the way, I don't consider Charleston part of the South. So.
You don't?
It is. I always teach. Charleston's a clean New Orleans.
That's exactly what I said,
and that's what that irks me.
I said it's New Orleans without the smell.
Yes, so which it doesn't make it New Orleans. So.
The first time we went, that was during COVID too, wasn't it, Anna Walton, I think? And we go down there, and I'm like, hey, I want to take you guys to Charleston. It was just starting up. They just had the rides. So that windows were still boarded up, and things were just starting to open up. Nobody was there. Walked right into any restaurant you wanted to go into, immediately seated. And we just had a great time. And Mary Stafford went, I'm going to live here. And at the time, she was at Mississippi State in architecture, and she had an emphasis on historic preservation. And her two choices were New Orleans and Charleston. And when we went to Charleston, she was like, okay, I love New Orleans, but I want to live in Charleston. So she gets there, and it's a 20-mile drive to her from apartment to work, hour and 30 minutes one way. And a year of that is she said, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And they're just steady people moving there. More people are moving there than Texas and Florida.
Oh, that's crazy.
It's insane. And she got this job in Charleston, which Mom and Daddy love because they're closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we love
Fair and Fairhope, yeah.
Yeah, Fairhope's a lot closer than Charleston.
That's not too bad. So she got to know your dad before she passed away. Anna get this?
She did. The craziest thing I've ever seen is the week. She said two things the week before my daddy died. She said she always called him Bubs. His name was Bubba. And she called him Bubs. And she said she was 6 years old and goes, I think my Bubs is tired of hurting. I think he needs to go to heaven. And then she drew a picture of him with angel wings. She's 6. And this is the artist over here, right? She wasn't born yet. But I don't know if you've ever seen that picture, Anna Walton. But it looks exactly like my dad. And a week later, he's gone. And I was like, if a 6-year-old can see it, the rest of us ought to see it.
Yeah, they don't have limiting beliefs putting it away.
No limiting beliefs.
And I like to say, so my father passed away right after my oldest was born, and didn't get to meet the younger ones. He had been dying most of my adult life. He had prostate cancer in the early 90s, congestive heart failure, losing limbs, diabetes, all that stuff. And after Katrina, it was even worse. And we told him, we're pregnant, we're happening, and we were, unfortunately or fortunately, we're your first kid. You're like, we're not supposed to leave the house for 4 weeks, blah, 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 blah. So we come back to New Orleans. He's in the hospital, and we got this great picture of him holding her, Allison, and then he goes to bed that night, and that was it. Like 2 days later, he died, and I'm like, but that's it. He stayed awake just for that moment. You know what I mean? And you don't have, when you talk about that legacy, it's another good quote, legacy is greater than currency,
Yeah.
Where, like, nobody cares. Like, we've had some prominent people in our area get fired out of high-position jobs here, and I've told people, like, was comparing the two, and I'm like, nobody's going to remember him in 20 years because he didn't go to any fundraiser or contribute anything to the arts. He didn't go to any events, wasn't socialized with anybody. Meanwhile, the other dude's broke. The other guy created money for other people, but he didn't do anything. And the other guy didn't create money for anybody, but took care of his family, was an honorable man. And I'm like, everybody's going to remember that fella, because, the legacy's a lot bigger than you helping somebody get elected a political office or something crazy, So I don't give money to politicians. I know you met a few politicians today, but my buddy Stephen Jones, who's mayor, I put a post on the night for his primary. It was very sincere about, like, he's been such a good friend, nothing about politics or anything like that. And he appreciated it, but he's like, could you stop telling people that you don't give me money? I'm like, because I need money to win elections. I'm like, well, no, I'm proud of you. You did it on your own. He's like, okay, just stop that right now.
So the weird thing about running for judge is we're not allowed to take money. So I can't take money from you and then be fair, right? Then there's a great line that I heard. There's something called judicial performance. If you have trouble with a judge, you can complain to judicial performance. And they were talking about they would come talk to us and tell us kind of some of the cases they've gotten. And one of the cases they got was this guy called and says, I'm really upset. My judge won't hear my case. And they're like, well, what's going on? He said, well, I voted for this guy. I raised money for this guy. I put his sign in my yard. We even went to high school together. And he said, he won't hear my case. And the guy that answers the phone was like, okay, well, this is a non-case, basically. And he says, well, look, he's just trying to be fair and impartial. And the guy on the other end of the phone said, well, if I wanted fair and impartial, I'd have voted for the other guy. So
that'll teach you.
Yeah. People don't want fair and impartial. But, yeah, I couldn't raise money on my own. Now, you can have political action committees that I could have had nothing to do with that could have raised money on my behalf, which is what all our Supreme Court justices have.
Everything's happening now.
Yeah. And but like if I was running for mayor, I could have a PAC and run the PAC, right? But I could have nothing to do with it as judge. So these judges are running. There's big money raised for them in the bigger seats. But they are supposedly they don't, and I'm going to say supposedly, right? Supposedly they don't know who gave to those.
Allegedly. Allegedly is a better term.
And I think we got some good ones, that are up there that I think probably is true.
Yeah. Well, there's some people, and we've had hanging judges and DAs here and tough guy. I mean, Forrest Allgood and Jim Kitchens are some of the toughest guys out there.
I know Jim.
And there's people, when I talk to them about like where they said, are people doing this for theater? I'm like, well, there's some true believers. I'm like, I don't mind somebody as long as they're using honest tactics if that's really what they believe. I know a lot of state and a couple national level politicians who they're scared to death because if they jump off their party line, they don't get anything at all, and they'll crush your county in every little vote, And that's what I don't like. Now, I don't necessarily have the courage to go do it myself and stand up,
Well, it's so weird though. I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say I'm going to run for judge, and I'm going to go around and say I'm going to be tough on domestic violence crimes. All right, I'm gonna, these people that get charged with domestic, I'm going to be real tough on them. Then that guy that gets charged with domestic violence gets a lawyer, and he walks in, he brings that up. He says, Judge, you need to recuse yourself. You've already said you're going to be tough on my client. He'd be right. So that's a slippery slope, and that's something I worried a lot about. And it's like that made running for office kind of hard to me, but also easy because I didn't have to really make any promises. And I just tell people, look, I'm going to just do the best I can to be fair to everybody that walks in there and put myself in their position, And on top of that, follow the law, which sometimes I didn't always agree with, but I followed. I did not always do the right thing, probably. I know I made mistakes. I did things that I wish I could go back and change because I'm still human. But I tried to follow the law. I tried to be fair. But I couldn't be – we were talking about potholes earlier. I couldn't fix anybody's pothole. You know what I mean? Yeah. I couldn't get anybody money for their school or any of that. So really all I could say is I'm going to be fair. And a lot of the guys I'd run against would be like, I'm going to be this on this. Well, you really can't say things like that, and they do, and it's
it was a judicial activism where you're like, I'm going to fix this, and sometimes that's part of the game on the circuit level and stuff.
It is, and it's a slippery slope, and it's like the whole thing with setting bonds. To me, the hardest thing about being a judge was setting a bond, and I did a lot of that. A lot of justice court judges don't set bonds on felony cases because you have a county court. You guys have a county court here in Lowndes, I think. But in Sunflower, we didn't, so it fell to me a lot of times. And it's like when you read what bonds are for, they're not made for punishment. They're not made to keep people. It's just made to make sure that when the trial happens, they're there. But if you let anybody out on a bond, it's the end of the world. And I get it. But they're accused of this. It doesn't mean, and a lot of times they weren't. I didn't think they were guilty, but I thought there's enough evidence to sign the warrant. But, it's like the old line, you can indict a ham sandwich. You know what I mean? It's not that hard to get an indictment. It's even easier to get a warrant signed. That doesn't necessarily mean they're guilty.
A lot of the guys, and I've completely felt differently since I
asked
left.
Donald Trump, by the way, on that one.
Since I left the newspaper business, but I was real close with police officers here and stuff. And when I first got into it, I was stunned at not all of them, but the lack of education of some of the investigators about how they had just taken a couple little online courses or little cursory courses on this stuff, and I was like, are y'all dusting for fingerprints or taking blood? They're like, nah, he shot him. And I'm like, they get to grand jury. We had a grand jury indictment where I had to testify for, and they called me and the detectives couldn't get past it, and they were essentially trying to explain how somebody stole money from somebody else I knew and how they did it, and there was PayPal involved, and they had all these charts out there, and Forrest Allgood calls me and he's like, you think you'd explain this? I'm like, this isn't court. I can say anything I want in a grand jury, right? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, I got this. We'll be done in 5 minutes. And I walk in there and I said, in the 6 months before this young lady stopped working here, they deposited $11 in cash. In the 6 days afterwards, they deposited $3,800 in cash. And Forrest was like, I didn't have to mention PayPal. I didn't have to mention all that. This was 15 years ago. Systems and pay money and ACHs and all this. And he was like, but that was enough for an indictment, which was one dude. And it was real. It was true, but it happened. I was like, I saw that, and I was like, at the same time, discouraged at the detectives that they couldn't explain that, but also that was it. That's enough for an indictment, And then they're in the paper for this, and you're never going to outlive.
Well, you can do hearsay in that. Same thing with the warrant. They can have all this stuff is not admissible in the trial, and so I'm looking at it going, I kind of think, well, A, is there a crime been committed? That's the first thing. And B, is it likely this person did it? Not did they do it? Because anything that points to them is, and I signed some warrants sometimes. I remember this one case where they had a bunch of guns stolen. So from a guy who was on the city council, right? So this, in a way, is in our little community, it was a big case. And the police department was getting some kind of pressure. And they made an arrest really faster than what they should have had. And I said, look, I can sign this warrant if you want me to. I think you got enough evidence for a warrant. But, Chief, why don't y'all go and try to get a little more and get a search warrant to go in the house and find the guns first? Well, they're on me so hard, I got to get somebody locked up. And I said, well, I can't put much bond on it because I don't think you got enough to get a maybe an indictment, but for sure not going to get him found guilty, you know. So I put like a $5,000 bond. Boy, within 30 minutes, my phone is burning up. And I said, look, part of what was a crime committed is likely they committed it. And how likely? Flight risk number one. How many people are really a flight risk that are going to leave and you're never going to see them again? In rural Mississippi, not many. I mean, I'm a flight risk. If I get accused of a crime I didn't commit, I'm going to Costa Rica, right? You're never going to see me again. But most people can't afford the bus ticket out of town. It's not a flight risk. The other is, what's the likelihood of conviction? And I said, on both of those, he scored really low. And they said, well, why did he make an arrest so fast? I said, because y'all won't leave him alone. The media won't leave him alone. The people that run this town won't leave him alone. And then so they make an early arrest. Guns are gone now. As soon as that arrest was made, he made bond. If he had them, they were gone. He wasn't going to wait on them now to come in his house. But you see that over and over, and that's a training thing, exactly what you just said. It's not their fault. But they couldn't explain that, what me and you just talked about, to the people putting the pressure on them. Yeah. Look, this is what's going to happen. If you just give us time to get our case together, we'll make it work.
Yeah, the municipalities, we're having an issue here with municipality, the city paying the county for keeping people in jail. It's getting real expensive to hold people up, you know, and then so if you let them out on bond, they do something else, and they're like, well, you let them out on bond. They're like, well, they're innocent till proven guilty. I said, if you want every time somebody gets arrested to stay in jail forever, you're going to have a problem.
So there's, if you're out on bond, and this is something else I think, and I don't want to talk bad about all my judge friends, but one of the things I think we get wrong a lot, if you are out on bond and you're accused of committing a crime and you're brought back in there, the judge should revoke that first bond, because one of the terms of the bond is you don't commit any crimes while you're out, and set a bond on the new one. And what they do is they won't give them a bond on the new one, or they just don't adhere to that at all. They give them a new bond and they just keep bonding out, which is also not good. But if you revoke the first one, once it gets to trial or whatever happens, if they're found not guilty or whatever, now they can bond out. They're already set up. They can bond out on this other charge. Yeah. But, man, the judges get that wrong all the time. And you got different courts have different cases at the same time against the guy. It's a lot harder than you think it is. But the bonding to me was, and the Supreme Court's been really clear, our Supreme Court has been really clear how they want to make sure they keep up with that. Oh, yeah, we're still rolling.
Yeah, we're still good.
Yeah.
So what keeps you going on the gas station food reviews? There's since I've been through it, not at the level you have, people think like, 1,000 likes is going to get you going, but eventually you stop looking at a post and you really don't feel good about yourself. I mean, is it the energy you get from somebody like Mr. John? Because like you said, a lot of times you're never meeting the owner of the gas station, you know?
Yeah, you tapped on to something that with your friend that does the reviews of the red beans and rice that I think is very true. It's like, I got to have a new game to play all the time. And I still want to do the reviews, but I'm also looking at longer form content and upping my game and, you know, how can I make better audio? You know, how could these videos be better? You get immediate feedback. So people will say early on, they'd be like, we need more up-close shots of the food. Done. You know, so a lot of it is what's the audience engagement telling me and how can I keep making them better? But I'm kind of at this point on the gas station food review where I'm like, I've got a nice little cookie cutter thing that's easy to do, harder to get there to do them right now because I have to go so far. So what can I take? How can I take what I've learned from that maybe and do something a little different? So what we're fixing to start doing, great Mississippi word, fixing to, is more long form content where it's more documentarian style. I want to do like several 3, 4, 5, 6 episode series for YouTube where we're going to do one on hot tamales in the Mississippi Delta. And we're just going to tell the story of the Mississippi Delta hot tamale And I have a couple of authors lined up, so it'll be.
Well, you got the right connections, literally, right? I heard
Yeah.
that right. Do you know John Edge from the Southern
Yeah,
Foodways?
know John T.
So I knew John when I was up at, I only spent 2 years in Oxford.
Yeah.
And he was one of my fast friends up there. I was with Papa John's Pizza, but we still connected. I'm super proud to see what he's done. And I mean, Chef John Curran's exploding with his stuff since then, too. And I don't know Wright, but I know Michael Ferris Smith, which, you know, y'all are all part of the I call it the everything's sunny in the South crew. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people like what John did with what's the show? The True South.
True South.
Yeah. So
Wright's the producer.
Yeah.
And John's the
and
talent.
I saw the first episode. Like I remember was it
Brownsville, Texas or something?
Yeah.
And I remember turning on and I'm like, is that John T. Edge?
Well, I remember and I saw his name on there. I'm like, dude, he got big all of a sudden.
Yeah.
To me it's huge, and it's a great lesson for our kids of like they just did it. Like it's not necessarily revolutionary. The stories that they tell are great, but like I kind of say like, oh, that's NPR. You know, when you hear the old days NPR, the coffee glasses clicking in the background, like, you know, Mr. John's United Deli is one of the little noises in the background with no video, and that's what I think of those things. And I'm like, they could have 4-hour shows. Some of these places they go could be 4 hours long on this one restaurant. Because you're just like, when you're in the mood to watch it, like it's awesome, you know.
We are by nature in Mississippi. We are storytellers, and I think that's really what I'm trying to say. Is I want to tell a little deeper story than what I've been telling, and they've been kind of an inspiration off of that show for me. Anthony Bourdain's been an inspiration watching his show, and it's cool to tell about the food, but I'd like to go back and tell about John. You know what I mean? Like that's a story that it kind of gets told, but that could be a lot deeper.
Well, I say he was one of our most fascinating podcast guests. When I went to ask him, I'm like, well, he's going to say no. And then he's like, I've listened to every podcast. And I'm like, then he came on and I'm like, told Josh, I'm like, you know, just come knock on the door if this doesn't get interesting. And John, what did I ask him? 6 questions? I'm like, so what happened when you moved to Macon? And he's like, these people were everywhere. The people were wonderful, which is, talk about a reflection or from his perspective of life. Or if you wake up in the morning and watch news, you're just going to be in this bad. They call it the reticular activator.
Yeah. You
know, Tony Robbins, which is if you're shopping for a Honda Accord, you're going to see Honda Accords.
Yeah.
So if you think things are horrible and you watch Fox News or whatever news in the morning and everything's horrible, then the rest of your day you're looking for other horrible things. Well, every 5 cities John moved into, he talked about how amazing the people were. And he's like, I was in Memphis and the people were amazing and they treated me so great. And then we went out of business. And then and then he's like, we went here and he's like, I went there, but it didn't work out. I'm like, why? He's like, well, 2001. I'm like, oh, racism. He's like, yes, it destroyed it. So I moved to Macon, but he goes, but the people were wonderful. He basically saying racism put him out of it. And I'm like, but his perspective, you could even tell probably in the moment, he was like, there's something to be learned from this, which is hard to do in the moment. But his version of his story, much like a lot of us, is like, oh, that was a life lesson. Like Dad passed away. That's a life lesson I learned, not how horrible it was. But it's so interesting doing podcasts. You're meeting people, to me, to change them from one-dimensional characters.
Yeah.
Like, even though I knew Mr. John, even though I'd been through that thing, Adele is his name, but until I interviewed him, I was like, he still was this isolated character in my life. Then when you get to know him, it's sort of like my boss talks about that with real estate. Get to know other realtors because it's kind of hard to get in fights and argue with people when you know what their kids' names are.
Well, long form podcast is the only way or the only medium out there right now where that happens. And I can't tell you how many times I'm like listening to pick the podcast, Joe Rogan or whoever, and I go, I don't really like this guy, but I'm going to listen to the podcast, and at the end of it, I go, I like that guy.
or he's just a dude. You know what I mean? Like, there's very few people who they get through it, and I'm like, he's just a guy trying. Yeah. I always say that to my kids.
And there's some that are like so far into their politics and so blinded by all of that. I'm like, I can't listen to this any longer. But for the most part, you listen to them and you find out they got the same struggles we got. They've been through the same loss of parents me and you have talked about today. They're just trying their best to make it through this thing, and none of us are getting out of it alive.
Well, I spent some time with John Acuff. So I don't know if you know John. He used to work for Dave Ramsey. Stuff Christians Like was his big podcast.
Yeah.
And now he's got all kind of books and personal growth stuff. And I've been with him. I met him at Papa John's at a corporate event. And the reason I thought it was interesting is because I was backstage and talking, but he was the keynote speaker. And as soon as he got off stage, he was like, it wasn't that the magic was over, but it was a job.
Yeah,
like, I
yeah.
could tell him, like, hey, you weren't that into that. He's like, oh, did it look like that? I'm like, no, but as soon as you got off stage, you were like, it's like, yeah, my daughter's having some struggles with something, and it's really I'm like, you were amazing out there. But he's like, he goes, sometimes it's work, sometimes it's whatever. And
that's something I think about. You know, I'll go give a speech somewhere, and I'm like, I know what I want to say. I know intellectually that what I'm going to say is right, and I'm giving good advice. And then deep down, emotionally, I'm going, am I even taking my own advice? You know what I mean? Like I'm having a really bad day, just like you said. I'm going through some stuff, and it just goes back to that thing, man. I think everybody's got their own problems, but we have to. Most time, if I'm speaking about something, it's probably because I'm dealing with it when I'm out speaking.
Yeah.
If I'm talking about, attitude before skill, like we talked about a little while ago, that's me going, I really got to keep up with my attitude because I'm going through some hard stuff, and I don't want to let that change my attitude to the world.
Yeah, and it's hard when you're committed yourself to doing something out in public or wherever. But I've had days where
it's a good thing.
I've had days where I've walked into the podcast thing just miserable, and I don't want to talk to these. I've literally told Josh Gillis, who's sitting 6 feet from me, that I don't want to talk to anybody, and I just went done. And I come out after 2 hours later, and I'm like, thank God. Not only do you forget about it, but sometimes it puts it in perspective when somebody's laying everything out.
The podcast stuff, like I look forward to, and the podcast and the Success Supper Clubs. Like the last one, I was having a really rough couple of days, and I was actually like, thank goodness I got Supper Club coming up because that's something I can look forward to. And I know my friend is coming, and he's going to have this great advice. And so that, for me, those have been good. Same thing with filming. Like I know how to do it. I know how to sit down and run my mouth with you. You know what I mean? And I'm like, so I've been looking forward to this day. Anna Walton knows that me and her have been talking about it for 2 weeks. And so, I have learned to compartmentalize and just be like, okay, I got to shut all that out for right now. Now, tomorrow, I'm going to wake up and have to tackle some of my problems.
Yeah.
So it'll be over tomorrow. And then Wednesday, I'm leaving town again for another big event. But tomorrow, Tuesday, I've blocked out that day. All right, you got to solve problems on Tuesday.
Well, I have a BNI networking group in our area, and whenever I'm speaking in front of there, that's what I tell them. I said, one of my favorite features in life is that you can get energy from other people and that you can bring it. So, like, if you go see enough people in a day, you're going to find one person who's like, yay! And if you talk to them long enough, you'll leave and be like, yay! Like, because it's real hard to go the gratitude thing where gratitude and stress can't exist in the same space in your mind.
Yeah.
And where you say, I'm so grateful 5 years ago, I'd be thrilled for what I have now. Well, 5 years ago, I'd be scared to death for the amount of zeros on there's writing that I need to make every month to keep the machine working, to keep the thing going or whatever. And God knows we're going to talk to Philip Good, the immediate past president of the National Soybean Council. And I was the first person to tell him he got that job in November 2 years ago. And I saw him at a Realtor meeting because he's a Realtor, and he looked worn out. And I think Trump had been in office like 60 days. And I'm like, wasn't this job supposed to be like ceremonial? Like you go to France, you go to Greenland, you go to Ireland, you go to China, you go to South America, and he's like, yes. And I'm like, bad time? He's like, it's not fun. And of the last 20 years, it's literally like such an honorary thing. And he's the most gentle creature in the world. He's just like.
I called Wright Thompson up and I said, Wright, it's a big ask, but would you do the foreword to my book? And he said, you want to send me the book or you want to just tell me what it's about? I said, it's about growing up in the Mississippi Delta, which Wright did, and Wright's family farms. I don't know if you know that, but they farm in Shelby. And he was like, I got you. About 15 minutes later, he messages me, check your email. And he had written me a foreword. And it is about, so that also is about that same time period. So the whole foreword is about what agriculture is going through in the Mississippi Delta, but everywhere. And how much of Wright's time has spent worried about people like me that are in the middle of that. And it's been hard. It's been a hard couple of years, and it's cramped my style, Colin. I can't do. Well, we don't take the vacations we used to take.
It hits you on the imposter syndrome and all that, and farming is such a complicated thing. It's not just putting stuff in the ground. Like the only knowledge I had of the farming season was that there was going to be a fertilizer issue before the Iran deal, and now there's a bunch of people can't get fertilizer, or who had to decide whether they're doing soybeans or sorghum or whatever, who were waiting the last couple of months going, I need to decide because I got to get the, in my mind, like you went to the store last week and got soybeans. Like
I did.
Yeah.
I did go to the store last week and get soybeans, and it's, we're trying to forward contract. Prices have been so bad, and they were bad before Trump took office. This is
Yeah.
And the problems we have are not all the tariffs' fault. I don't want to say that, but they certainly hadn't helped us. So I guess the elephant in the room is that it's this weird thing where in the 1970s they thought we were running out of food, and here we are with an incredible surplus of food in the world. Yes, the problem with people starving is logistics. It's not a ag problem. So we're overproducing, and that you can't take that elephant out of the room. Well, now since the Iran war, beans have gone up, but I forward contracted when we had the last bump, and so now, fuel is $5 and beans. It's just a big mess, and it's like everywhere you turn, as a farmer, you do feel like you're getting punched in the face. And everybody in ag's making money, but the farmer. So the ag business has been good. John Deere's posting profits. Nutrien, these ag suppliers posting huge billion-dollar profits, and the farmer's barely hanging on. It's a weird thing that we're in.
Yeah, that's a weird time. And again, like, generally speaking, the Republican Party is kind of the champion of the farmer, and I know it's not exactly.
No, it's not. But that's really not the truth.
Yeah.
The truth is it was the Democrat Party that all of the modern-day farm bills were written by Democrats. And my dad never voted Republican because he's from a different time period.
Well, there was, when I moved here, this was the tail end of locally Mississippi Democrats. You know what I mean? Like the conservative party was
Fordyce was the first Republican governor since Reconstruction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, okay, you had Republicans during Reconstruction because they appointed them because nobody would elect them here. But you go back to Eastland and my Uncle Otha, who's really good friends with Eastland, and they wrote together some of the farm bill. And so all the modern day farm bills are basically some of that same stuff. And then in the 90s, they did the Freedom Farm Act and some other stuff that's kind of the modern day versions. And they were written by Republicans and Democrats together. But since then, there's been a big swing in rural voters voting Republican. That was just not the case back in the day. And so ag has a real weird thing. And at some point, they looped a bunch of stuff in ag policy together, which is the SNAP benefits and all that are in that policy.
Yeah.
Rural development's all in that. And they did that on purpose to muddy the waters.
Yeah.
So it's...
I can't imagine a business like that where, like, again, something can... I'm in real estate, and tornado can come and wipe out a house, but like I said, you can lose your whole farm, and there's tax credits and tax breaks and incentives and all this sort of stuff that just blows my mind.
The government is an incredibly... there's a piece of me that's very... what's Rand Paul? He's not really a Republican. He's a
libertarian.
He's more libertarian.
Theory, but his dad was a... I'd say I used to, when I moved up here, I grew up in New Orleans. I said, I'm like everybody. I'm socially liberal, like leave me alone, and fiscally conservative on a local level, but otherwise send me the money, And when I started saying that here, people just go, nobody here like agreed with me, but I'm like, but in practice,
think they do. I think
in practice,
they do. Yeah.
whenever you say socially liberal,
live and let live.
People go crazy when you say socially liberal, just because the word liberal's in it. And then fiscally, you know how much money we get? Like somebody asked, every time they complain about our traffic circle, which you're about to experience here in town, I was like, well, you just have to, the 2012 omnibus spending bill that was, Alan Nunnally, our late congressman, voted for that in 2012 and 2016. The money got here to the state in 2018. The state gave it to the local jurisdictions, and then they decided we had to build 2 traffic circles, and that's what the studies say we should pick. And since then, nobody's died at that intersection. It used to be 4 people a year. And they're like, stupid Columbus. And I'm like, no, did you just listen to me how this traffic circle got here? I'd be like, the insurance industry lobbied for this. And as I said on the Dispatch podcast this morning, I was like, I want people to be mad at the right person for doing it. And it's so complicated now to figure out what system
I listen to a lot of Milton Friedman.
Yeah.
And I love that guy. And he would probably be extremely libertarian, even for most libertarians. But he does the best job of explaining stuff like that. It's like the government is just so into everything in here is taxed. You know, the chairs we're sitting on, the airwaves this is going out on, the internet it's been be downloaded. Everything's so taxed.
That's why we don't realize, even if you don't pay a lot of income tax, you don't realize how much times things get handed.
You know
down.
what I saw the other day? You know, when income tax started, it was for the 1%. Nobody else but the 1% had any money taken out of their paychecks. Now, you can call payroll tax what you want to call it. It's an income tax. They throw it all in the general budget. Today, every single person that gets a paycheck has money taken out. And originally, it was for the 1%.
Well,
so that just shows you they don't never go back.
Well, Milton Friedman had a lot of real cold economic facts that people don't want. The most prominent one that people knew before, but that he publicized was, for every mile an hour you raise the speed limit over 55, you're killing 5,000 to 6,000 people in the United States. Every mile an hour.
It's a little different now because we're got safer cars.
Safer cars, yeah.
But it's still you're still killing more people.
Yeah. So you're literally saying these people's lives.
It's okay. So let's kill it so we can get to work fast.
So speaking of driving far and fast and sacrificing lives for your trade, where are the next gas stations on your list? Do you have a sharp months out, or do you kind of have to sit down and go, I'm going to Orange Beach?
I'll look at my calendar. This is Colin. This is how it works. I'll look at my calendar and I'll be like, I got a couple of days next week. Where can I go? And sometimes I was really good about having a list, and I've gotten bad about it now. But I'll go like, man, I want to go to San Antonio, Texas, and I'll just put the call out on the internet. Hey, what's good in San Antonio? I've got contacts now, like Kate. We're talking about Kate Medley.
Yeah.
Thanks, please come again. My friend Al Aber that writes for a national publication, National Association of Convenience Stores president. I'll reach out to all of them and say, hey, I'm going to San Antonio. And they'll all start sending me suggestions. And then, of course, on social media, I'll get them. And then I'll start doing a little research and put me together. And I'll get a map out, and I'll be like, okay, these three are kind of close together. I think I can hit them in one day.
Yeah.
So some of it's about proximity sometimes. But, yeah, I don't really have a good plan. And it's hard because everything is predictable on my future but the farming part. Till I kind of get in the right spot. I really don't know what I'm going to be doing sometimes. That makes it hard to schedule. Wintertime, no problem. I can do whatever I want.
How many acres on your farm?
Less than 1,000 now. It's just me. That's the only other thing. It's just me, so I can't leave town.
We were talking this morning of his daughter's going to Festival of the Fae, which by the time this comes out should be happening like this day, which is this weekend, February 15th or 16th. And I'm like, hey, he's got a big piece of land. And then I stopped myself because I knew I was talking to a farmer because it's like 10 acres. And I'm like, never mind.
Yeah, my house sits on 4.
That's not proper acreage.
Most guys I know that my buddies that all farm around me, that this is all they do. They're farming 5,000 or 6,000 acres most of the time. 4,000 to 6,000, and I got friends 10,000 acres plus.
That's a grown-up job.
That's a grown-up job. Yeah, it's a big business when you're doing it like that.
Well, we're going to scoot over to the Golden Triangle Theater. You have any comments about your thoughts on Columbus since you haven't hung out here in 30 years?
It has been a whirlwind tour today. I'm not saying this, to make friends. It looks so much better than it did 30 years ago. I mean, it really does. I can remember coming down here in college in the early 90s, not mid 90s, early 90s. And you and I were talking about how many of the houses were in terrible shape. And I was very surprised, even though I kind of knew, see in the news, y'all are kind of having a renaissance of sorts. But it looks good, man.
Did you ever see Blind Melon play? I mean, that was your generation.
No, I've not, no.
Okay, well, Blind Melon they were huge when you were here in 94, 95. So is that the correct time period that you would have been at state?
Yeah, I was here in 94, 95. We went, I remember going to see Alan Jackson in Tupelo, Clint Black. I was a country music guy. I went to Classics in Columbus on Wednesday nights for country night. And, saw Garth Brooks at Mississippi State in his heyday. You had to go to. We went to Set and Duty Noble, and they raffled off tickets. If you won the raffle, you could go buy 2 tickets. That's how many people were trying to get tickets, which was still better than Ticketmaster.
My friend Tom mentions often on his podcast that Garth Brooks has killed several people. I don't think that's true.
Garth Brooks, if anything ever happens to Tom Segura, they're going to have to investigate Garth because
I had to throw that in there.
They have had some
allegedly
back and forth. Oh, I didn't tell this part. So I catered a meal for Garth Brooks one time. And I was working for the Grammys. There's a Grammy Museum in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So I was working for them. And I have a lanyard that says Grammys and all of this stuff. And they're like, made me sign a contract. I didn't know who I was catering for until like 2 days before. It was a super big secret. And they're like, finally, she's like, you're not going to believe who it is. And finally they go, it's Garth Brooks, and you have to sign this thing that if you see him, you won't talk to him.
You'd burn the whole place down and break that rule, wouldn't you?
And that's not his. He didn't ask us for that. We're just doing that because we don't want everybody bombarding him. And I literally walk into the gift shop, and it's just me and him in there. And I say walk into the gift shop. When you go in the Grammy Museum, it's open air, right? And I'm just like, what's up? And just keep on. I said, I did what you told me, but I fed him fried ribs, mashed potatoes, turnip greens, I think, or something like that, and some baked chicken, just in case he didn't want anything fried. And they wouldn't even let me take it in there to him. They had like one person that dealt with him, and that was it.
Well, I hope you get that famous one day that we're not allowed to directly look at you or anything like that.
I don't want to be that famous, dude.
Oh, my goodness. Well, how do people track you down if they need to talk to you?
StaffordShurden.com or whatever your favorite social media is. Just go to that. I'm easy to find.
2 F's in Stafford, right?
2
we
F's
went over
in
that earlier
Stafford,
today.
just like the JCPenney collection.
I own ColinKrieger.com, but nobody can spell my name, so it's not gonna do me any good.
Yeah, if you go to Stafford Shurden, all of my social media is right there at the top.
There you go.
Yeah.
And when's the restaurant open in Drew, Mississippi?
It's open every day but Saturday, 11 to 1:30.
There you go. And when's the next Success Supper Club?
The 26th, I've got a guy, Ian O'Leary from Jackson is coming. He's a business coach.
There you go.
So we're going to see what Ian's got to say.
All right. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you
and
for letting me plug, dude.
Thanks for coming to Columbus, too.
Go to Friendly City Books and buy my book.
There
They
you
got
go.
a few books.
If Mr. John bought them all, I think.
They got a couple. They got a couple signed
John
copies,
United
yeah.
Deli has a bunch of them.
Yeah, or you can go to United Deli and buy them, yeah.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. My name is Colin Krieger, and my day job is real estate. If you're looking to buy or sell, I'd love to talk to you. Or if you just want to sit and talk real estate in a no-pressure situation, I'd love to help you. I work with RE/MAX Partners in Starkville, Columbus, and West Point, Mississippi. I can help you find an agent anywhere in Mississippi or anywhere in the country. Just reach out to our office at 662-327-7705 or find me anywhere when you type in 662-329-SOLD.